I'm so glad you're here to ease back, to rest, and to listen. Before we get started, I want to share this with you. Rest is many things. Rest is a portal. Rest is a bridge from where you are to where you want to be. Rest is fuel. Rest is a soft place to land. And most of all, rest is sacred. Rest is refuge. Rest is remembrance. Rest is a revelation. You are sacred. Your rest is sacred. And if you want to infuse more of the sacredness of rest into your day to day life, I have something for you. Check out my latest book, Rest is Sacred, at www.restisacred.com. Okay, enjoy your listen. Welcome to Leaders Devoted to Rest, where we explore how rest is a sacred practice that awakens both possibility and power within you. I'm your guide, Octavia, Faith, and Raheem. In each episode, I chat with a leader whose life has been positively transformed through their devotion to rest. Now, you know we aren't just going to sit up here and talk about rest. We are going to actually lay down. Each episode ends with a rest practice for you to try at home. Rest is fuel, and you are in the right place to fuel up. So grab your favorite pillow, blanket, cozy socks, and journal, and ease on back as we begin another restorative episode. Today, I'm chatting with Gabrielle Wyatt. Gabrielle founded the Highland Project in October 2020. And the Highland Project is an organization focused on building and sustaining a coalition of Black women leading communities, institutions, and systems, resulting in the creation of multi-generational wealth in their communities. Gabrielle and the Highland Project have been featured in MSNBC, Essence, Forbes, Fast Company, and more. Passionate about imagining the future through nature and stillness, you can find Gabrielle often walking alongside trees and new trails in New York, watching, and most recently painting. Gabrielle earned degrees from University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and the Harvard Kennedy School. In this episode, Gabby and I do what we do: daydream, envision a future of Black abundance. Welcome to Leaders Devoted to Rest, Gabrielle Wyatt. I like to start by stopping, and if it is all right with you, would you start by stopping with me? And that can look like closing your eyes or just softening your gaze, and together we will anchor and arise by receiving a full breath in through the nose and exhaling out however the exhale comes, which is let it be natural. And then we'll do that two more times together. And then when you're ready, you could keep your eyes closed, you can open them. I like to pause for 3 breaths and then notice whatever I notice when I step back into the flow, and I'll just continue by saying when I am talking about a rest practice, that is a lot of what I'm talking about, which is what we just did. And I also know it makes a difference, and it is a practice that we have to remember to engage. So with that, next, to say the name is to begin the story. One of my favorite writers, poets, thinkers, Sandra Cisneros says that. And I know I have already said your name. It feels so important to me for people to say their own names and then to just share a little bit about who you are and where you are arriving from today, which I have to name that today is November 4th, 2024. So tell us who you are and where you're arriving from.
Mm. I am Gabrielle Wyatt Gardner, and I am arriving from a clearing. Um, it is November 4th, 2024 as we record. And I found myself Friday morning in a call with an executive coach crying at the end. And at the end of that, at the end of crying, I had my best friend on the other side of my door where I was talking to her. And she came in, gave me a hug, and I just said, I have to record a podcast on burnout in like an hour. And here I am sobbing my eyes out. And I realized that my like voice had turned down. And that the anxiety of November 5th was just like a um prohibiting from me from arriving that day. And I made a choice over the last few days to completely clear what I thought I was going to do. I allowed myself to walk for 12 miles on Saturday. I allowed myself to paint the last 2 mornings without a timer or like a eye on the clock. And I said to my best friend Kat this morning as we walked, I feel so much more like me today. Like something happened as I slept last night. So I'm arriving from a place of this like sense of a clearing that I
Oh,
have
I
control over choosing and inviting in.
thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So you cleared
Mm.
space to engage with that which helps you to reorient toward who you are and whose you are and what you are, um, even when the air outside is thick, right? As we record this today. And I feel like you already answered this question a little bit, but what has rest awakened within you? I like for you to own the context. It could be today, this minute. It could be last week. It could be a month. It can be. I had someone. I asked them this question. They said, "Well, if it's awakened, it's awakened. Whether it's a minute ago or 3 years ago." And so, fair enough. What has rest awakened within you?
Mm. I love where you laugh because, I like to bend time. So I too, I'm like, I'm not sure when it started, this awakening or what it was, but rest has awakened a trust in inner power. And I pause because I'm not sure. I have not been in inquiry with when I stopped believing I was powerful. But what I do know in this space I am in, I know I am powerful. And I don't say that from a power like with or power to, but I actually just say it in a true understanding of or trust in my vessel um, of power and strength. And that has been it has shook the ground, I think, for my leadership and not in a professional setting as like the first line of thought, but I think about it I was talking with my middle sister the other day, and she said, "It was really powerful that you just pulled out painting the other day at mom and our stepdad's while everyone's chattering, and you like stayed with us, but you were just like quiet and still painting in that circle." And she said, "I don't think I had ever seen you do something like that in adulthood." Um, and that that to me, I think of as like a trust in my power of like I can hold space for people I care for and have practices that love on me back.
And that's sustainable.
Mhm.
It's like pouring, drinking a little bit, pouring, drinking a little bit versus like pouring, pouring, pouring down at the bottom of the pitcher, you know, you hit the top trying to get a drop out. Thank you for sharing that. Um, it has awakened, reawakened. Because at some point it was there, right? Trust in inner power, right? So it's a reawakening, like a restoration happens in rest. You said um, that it's impacted your leadership, and you said, but not even necessarily in a professional sense as a first line of thought. So, what is that first line of thought that you would say? Where has the awakening you found in rest of your trust in your inner power, like professional leadership? Yes, but where else has it impacted your leadership? How else has it impacted your leadership?
It's really for me like it's just all it's beginning and ending with a really asking myself like, but what do I want to do today? And I again don't mean that of like, am I showing up for work or not? But it is this water is calling for me when I wake up. Quiet is calling for me when I wake up, not turning on the news. Um, doing with my hands quietly. It's good, like, what if it's journaling or painting? But I think when I say power in my leadership, I think I do believe it is leadership of my well-being and my humanity. And I often, particularly in the last 4 years in founding a nonprofit, struggled with my identity in that, specifically my identity stepping into the role of founder and CEO when I was so comfortable in being behind the scenes, behind a capital L leader. And in one of the early days of my organization, I said to leaders we support, I'll be a great chief of staff to you. And it haunted me, that line, haunted me that whole first year
Mm,
because that meant I also put a backseat to myself in so many senses of that word. And so I think the like awakening of power was like power of like, I'm a leader who deserves my own leadership, who deserves
that's
my
right.
own vision, who deserves my own pouring into. Um, and if I couldn't figure out and be in relationship with who I am as a woman and a leader in a way that was from a place of abundance, not pointing fingers at me in the mirror or shaming myself or comparing myself, I couldn't actually really step into the full vision of not even Highland, but frankly, like the change I really want to lead in the world.
So self-leadership. And it can seem simple when I just say it back as self-leadership, and it's quite profound. So many are trying to lead everything and everyone else and lead some change in the world, and they are disoriented. They don't know where their own kind of internal North Star is. Um, so what are you devoted to doing? You know I love this question. What are you devoted to doing in this life, in this world, and what are you devoted to not doing?
Mm. I am devoted to doing investment, and I'll define investment in a moment, but investment in spaces and places where Gabby, at every stage in her life and the lives she has not yet known, can thrive. And when I think I'm invested in that, it's not just in the capital forms that my current role and my previous role have taken professionally, but it is in choosing to live with an intentional set of actions, which will not surprise you to hear from me, Octavia. Mindsets, beliefs, and who I surround myself by, who lead me further in that vision of creating spaces where my former self and my future self can thrive. I am devoted to doing that anchored in creativity. I'm devoted to doing that anchored in nature. I'm devoted to doing that anchored in community care. I am devoted to not, and I'm saying this actually particularly, and I feel like the season of the leadership that I am in,
Mhm.
I am devoted to not getting caught up in busyness. I am devoted to not um, stay reliant on like what served me, even in my times of feeling most in alignment. I'm devoted to not assuming that will always serve what is coming next. Um, and I am devoted to not trusting. I'm devoted to this. That sounds like an oxymoron. Sounds like a double negative. I am devoted to not um I'm devoted to not falling back into what can sometimes feel like that easy and safe spot of um falling back in line, mimicking behaviors, following old patterns. I'm devoted to trying my best to not do that.
I hear I'm devoted to walking the path that is mine. um, and so you said I'm devoted to not succumbing to busy. How does that look? What does that look like for you? Is there something particular, like
Make it real.
make it
Okay.
plain?
Make it plain. Okay, so my devoted to not being busy is a huge shout out to Rita Burke on our team because she is my co-conspirator in this. And frankly, like Octavia, you modeled this for me
Mm.
at some point in the last 4 years, many a times of naming by season, however you define that externally. If you're not on my radar, if you weren't on my radar before this, I love you. And also, I'm going to schedule you a quarter from now. So, to be extremely explicit, I am in a season when if you email me and you were not, our paths hadn't been crossing in the stream, whether it was like a real, I knew you on LinkedIn or not, we met at a conference or not, but like that I didn't already predict in some way there should be time and space carved out in a way I could show up with presence. I say, I love you. And Rita's going to help us get scheduled 3 to 4 months from now.
Yeah.
And that is actively unbusying myself so that
Mhm.
I think I know if Rita were here, she would say, because of course I could find time for that 30 minutes. This is not a question of can I find time or not. It's a question of can I honor what Gabrielle needs to show up in the way I read a note need her to show up,
Mhm.
the way the organization needs her to, the way that her own Octavia's word self-leadership need her to. Um, and I think in it, like I'm learning, I don't know if you're allowed to curse in here, but like shit's not breaking, right? And
Right.
like not breaking. And do like sometimes we get like a frustrated response? Sure. But I just have to try my best to stay anchored, and Rita is so helpful in this of honoring what is required of the time.
Yeah, different seasons call for different things, and to start kind of midway where you took us is I deeply value the presence I bring to every endeavor I have with another human being. And in order to offer the quality of presence that I can, the highest quality of presence that I can, and that engagement deserves, and to honor my boundary, and to honor the season, and to honor what I have already said yes to, my no's are explicit. And it's not no never, it's just you're not responding knee jerk to other people's urgency. Like you any one of us that identify as leaders can't, like, a lot is coming at us at all times, and lots of different graspiness on our time. And there's a way that it can feel like I should say yes to that. Or like, like it's like I'm responsive and my response isn't um devoid of there's a seasonality to this. Something else is happening right now. But I also just really hear boundary making and honoring in a really benevolent sense though. Not like it's not inflexible. It's just there's a boundary here and I'm gonna honor it and I'm gonna ask you to honor it. And then in you naming Rita, your executive assistant, I hear investing in um the support teams that will support me in the way that I really need to be supported in this season and in my work. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to ask one more question, and then if you'd like to rest for a few minutes, that's where I want to take us. What's a well rested life to you?
Oh my gosh. A well-rested life, day in the life of Gabby would be
You can go. So
right?
Gabby and I share like a spirit animal, the hawk. So you could go, hawk can get down in the detail, a hawk could just take us to like what I just thought of is like when I'm 80 and I'm sitting on a rocking chair, and I go and I look back, I go, well rested life had these elements or it felt like this, but also, like I thought, oh, there's just space to really, I see creativity, I see like love, I see slow meals, I see um deep, deep work that was able to happen because I wasn't trying to pack all these things in, all of that, right? But then I did think, well, what are the days shaped like that support when I'm 80 sitting on a rocking chair? And a little grandniece or nephew or godchild says, "Tell us about your well-rested life." So either you could just say the big elements, or you could tell us what the days that brought you to your, you know, I'll say 90, not 80, your rocking chair self.
Girl, I'll be 100, at least 102, because that's
When you're on the rocking chair, like I'm gonna be 102, but it's just like that's the juncture where someone was like, "Tell us about your well-rested life," and I go, "Well, little one."
a little one. That question will obviously be asked when I'm on a rocker surrounded by massive trees. I think about every decade of my well-rested life, I am surrounded by trees. And I am surrounded by those moments in trees of solitude, but also in, like, grabbing a partner to walk with me so I can point out the birds, and I think at every stage in that decade, having just, like, strange facts to share as I slow up, and walk with them. I think about in that chair surrounded by trees, I really see, like, the hauling out of books, of journals, of I'm looking to my right because it's where I have all of the notes from Highland cohorts and leaders, to my painting books and, like, showing those opening those up to show our collective depth.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, and I think to show and I don't know why this makes me teary, but, like, that I actually have memory of doing and creating these things, that I can touch the words or the images and have that chill that's rising on me or that tear in my eye that's literally coming out. And I just have to say that feels in such contrast to the first 15 years of my career in leadership.
mhm,
Um, where yes, I have visceral memories of getting yelled at a school board meeting, but I
mhm,
don't have the same visceral memory of helping to open a school building that was clean, safe, and supportive for kids.
mhm,
And so I think this like a well-rested life to me means I actually have images that I've created and I can remember that aren't one off, but are in multiples.
mm.
Mhm.
I heard you say a well-rested life is I can say, "Look here, what what I made, what we made, and what I remember and we can remember." It's embodied, like, I was here and I remember being here. Um, yeah, I didn't just, like, work a life. I made one, I created it, and I remember it. That embodiment is essential. So thank you. I love that. I like that daydreaming with you. We do this. Like I really do. Like I'm with the trees. I'm rocking. But it's also like that's a rest practice though to be like, well, let's go to the trees and rock in our minds, even as the air is thick here. Um, so can I ask you what part of you would most appreciate some restoration and rest right now?
Mm. I'll just say, like, the broadening of my shoulder. Like, I think I was doing that in yoga a lot this morning, and I'd
Okay.
love to open like, what's in need of rest is oddly like it's an opening and an expansion,
Okay.
or that's what I would like to awaken through rest is probably the more proper way to say.
Okay.
That making sense?
I I have heard you. I hear you. It makes sense to me. I'll say yes. Um, so I'm going to invite you to keep your camera on or turn it off. You really choose, and we'll rest. Across here, I'm touching my collarbone right above the center of my chest. And my first invitation is to honor what I saw you do organically. I really am gonna like walk right into where you led us, which is to touch right below your collarbone with your own fingertips. And the way I'll invite you to do that though is like fingers relatively spread and just palms flat. You know how you might go and place your hand on someone's back? Um, Here we're doing that same kind of I'm with you hand placement on the front side. So, and eyes can be open or closed. And there is something to just placing, laying a hand, I'll say. We come from a long line of folk who know the power of laying a hand on to a place and simply sitting or keeping the hand placement steady there. And so for now, this will be the rest practice to place the hand slightly above the center of the chest, below the clavicle bone. And invite the elbows to be heavy and thus the shoulders to soften. And then if you tap the fingertips, press the fingertips to be more explicit, press the fingertips more firmly in, and the elbows can go back and the shoulders can soften down. And then we'll notice the support beneath you, which is the chair or the floor. But beneath the chair and the floor, the earth. And upon this earth, the constant cosmic embrace, the force field embrace of gravity holding us. And so you let the body register the support, the very tangible support of what's beneath you, what's beneath us, what's holding us. Is not a metaphor. It sounds really poetic. And then notice your breath. And then receive an inhalation in through the nose and exhale with the slightest sigh. And then this organic arising that I'm witnessing for you, if someone's listening, they can't see this, is rocking. Rocking is a timeless, ancient, really very naturally occurring way to soothe, to reset the nervous system. And it's so appropriate because we've been talking about rocking on the chair. So, what are we doing right now? Aware of the support beneath us, laying a hand on just above the center of the chest, some awareness of breath, not forced or hard or intense, and then just rocking. And so we'll do this together, breathing and rocking. It might be forward and back, it might be side to side. That rocking might become still at some point. We'll do this though for about 5 more breaths. And then when you feel complete with that, hands where they are, rocking, first slow down the rocking, then stop the rocking, and then release the hands down. And that can be a really slow and mindful movement. The hands will come down toward the thighs, toward the knees, and move the elbows slightly back, and your arms will likely want to straighten. You see if they want to straighten, and if they do, you will sweep your hands back like you're flipping a cape back or flipping a soft blanket back. Cape blanket. Blankets are my favorite kinds of capes. And then place your hands in a solid place where they aren't needing to be held up. So maybe thighs or desk, and just shrug your shoulders up, back, and down. And then this time, bring your dominant hand more closely to the center of the chest. And just notice what you notice and feel what you feel. And if it resonates with you on an inhale, do you silently say to yourself, I am? And on the exhale, here. Inhale, I am. Exhale, here. Inhale, I am. Exhale, here. And then when you're ready, you release your hand down and you notice and you feel. And you can take your own 5 seconds or so to open your eyes. You know, I like to give time to journal, to free write. You can freestyle out loud with me, whatever you need or want. Um, Rest is refuge. It's a place to remember. It's a place for revelation. And so journaling after I find very useful. So we'll pause because I see you writing or drawing. Can't see your hand. So Gabrielle Wyatt Gardner, how was that for you just to sit and lay a hand on yourself and to rock? Okay.
It was bright.
It was bright. Yes. So when we started, you said you were arriving from a clearing
Mhm.
as we prepare to leave. How are you leaving?
I am leaving. I'll just share what I wrote down, which was
Okay, perfect.
own you have choice, underline, abundant choice.
I am leaving owning that I have an abundance of choice. That sounds like a prayer. And so to that, I will say ashe and amen. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your clearing and your brightness and your for dreaming with us a little bit. It's been delightful. Thank you so much, Gabby.
Thank you, Octavia.
Thank you so much for listening. And you are still here. I hope that means that you enjoy the episode. Before moving on to the next thing, I have an invitation for you. If you can, pause and notice your breath. Notice your inhale and notice your exhale. As you reflect on this episode, what did you hear that was interesting or inspiring? What did you learn? What did this episode wake up within you? What did this episode allow to rest within you? Thank you again so much for being here. You are sacred. Your rest is sacred. And you being here and you staying here affirm that you can be devoted to rest. That you can be a leader and devoted to rest. Until next time.